And so we come to this year 2008, and we're not as secure, we're not as influential, we're not as dominant as we would like to be. And we've learned to our distress that a small group of people working in a country as remote from the United States as it's possible to be can cause death to many of our citizens, can cause the federal budget to explode on security matters. Okay. Advice to the next president. That's kind of presumptuous of me, isn't it? But like everybody, I've got some views on it. One of the things I want to say is that when the president steps into that office, there's a lot of good things happening in the world. And we ought to be grateful for that. There aren't any great power conflicts. When I was a young boy, and some of you older folks here have to point to the senior members of the faculty. The younger faculty members can't remember this, but we worried about the Soviet Union hitting the button and blowing us off the face of the earth, didn't we? I worried about it. I went to Congress, and one night I was putting my young daughter to bed, and she said, "Daddy, are those missiles from the Soviet Union really going to hit us in Washington?" She'd heard a speech I gave on the floor of the House. In South America, Eastern Europe, Asia, and elsewhere, democracy is the rule and not the exception. The global economy has entered its fifth straight year with over 4% growth. We're making some progress. All of the progress is fragile, but it's encouraging too. And I hope the president will note the good things that are happening. But he's going, or she's going, to have to make some very tough decisions with regard to priorities. I gave you that long list of things, and I could add to it at the beginning of my remarks. You can't solve all those problems. The most important decisions a president makes relates to priorities. Are you going to do this, or are you going to do that? You can't do it all. I've told you what my priority is on nuclear weapons, but I don't know what the new president's going to decide. But he or she will have a lot of tough decisions to make on priorities. Our next president will know that his or her, I have to be careful here, don't I? His and her leadership will be a key ingredient of American foreign policy. I walked into the office of the National Security Advisor a few years ago. There were a stock of files on the desk this high. I said, "What are those?" About 30 or 40 of them. The National Security Advisor said, "Those are all that need immediate attention, every file." There was another stack over on the other side of the desk. I said, "What about those?" And he said to me, "Those are all urgent." Now, we know about many of those problems because we read the newspapers and watch television, but we don't know a lot about them. But the fact of the matter is that in Washington, D.C., when you have all of these important people coming into town every single day, a treasury minister, a foreign minister, a prince, a king, a head of government, they come streaming into Washington day after day. I think there were 3 heads of state in Washington last week, plus the Pope. He's head of state also, isn't he? 4. Why do they all come? They come for one reason. They want help. Maybe they want aid. Maybe they want trade. Maybe they want military arms. Maybe they want a picture op with the president. I don't know. But they come. Why? Because the United States can help them because of our position in the world. And surely the next president is going to have to restore respect for America. We've seen a sharp decline in that respect in the past few years. In every poll I've seen, America's more disliked around the world than at any point in our history. I've been spending a lot of time on Iraq, and one of the things that really bothers me is, why do we have to bear all the cost? Don't the neighboring countries have some responsibility here? Why are they putting it all on us? We alone are coping with the costs, and of course their answer is, well, you folks started it. Work it out. But that's not a satisfactory answer, because the whole world has a stake now in what happens in Iraq, and especially the countries in that region. You know, I know there are a lot of differences between the presidential candidates, but one of the things that has impressed me is how much they agree on some things. All three of them have said they're going to stop waterboarding and torture. All three of them have said they're no longer skeptics about global warming. They're going to support vigorous U.S. leadership on that question. All three of them have said we need comprehensive immigration reform and a path to legal status for those who entered the workforce illegal. All three of them. All of them have said they favor closing Guantanamo. All of them have said they're going to put more focus on Afghanistan. I know there are a lot of differences, but there are a lot of similarities as well. And they all understand that they're going to have to be sure that they act to restore respect for America. And if they take the steps I've just identified, they'll go a long way in that direction. I think the next president has to understand the urgent need for American leadership. I understand that a lot of Americans today are turning inward, don't want to fool with the problems around the world. I can appreciate that. I feel that way myself sometimes. But we can't do that. I'm aware of these sharp instincts for isolationism, as we used to call it. But the world needs our leadership. You see, I happen to believe that the United States, when it exercises its leadership, looking over a period of many years, it's a positive thing for the world. I don't want to overstate that. We make some mistakes. We can be arrogant. But overall, every president I've known really, genuinely tries to make the world a little better place. You and I may not always agree with their judgments, but I don't think we should disagree with their motivations. And the next president will not, of course, believe that the United States has entered into some kind of permanent decline. And I believe what Americans want is leadership on behalf of a world where our interests are protected, where we work with like-minded nations, where the values of liberty and justice and opportunity are the norm, not the exception, and where, if I may quote Martin Luther King, the arc of the moral universe bends towards justice.